love without the truth is hypocrisy.
Yep.
And the truth without love is brutality. So I've
Yep.
never been the brutal type where it's just like, yo, I'm gonna tell you exactly how it feels and it hurts your feelings. Like I find ways to articulate how I'm feeling to make you feel nice. Right. So that hasn't been my issue. My issue was saying that I love somebody, not telling them the truth about how I feel. I had 3 years to tell my mom, like, yo, you're demanding too much of me. I can't do
Mm.
all of it. But I was being a hypocrite, pretending like everything is okay, but in actuality, like I didn't like you, mom. So I was just like, yo, Ben, you're gonna stop being a hypocrite. You're gonna put your foot down and you're gonna tell your mom what you can and you cannot do in a nice and loving way. And that's what
Right.
I did. And that finally kind of like freed me. So my excuse that I didn't have time in the beginning was valid. 3 years later, it wasn't.
Happy Wednesday, my winners and goal getters. Welcome to another episode of the Getting the Win Show. I am your host, Mellissa T, the procrastination bully. Again, as always, I always let you guys know when you're coming to this show, come with your pen and paper. Make sure you are seated and comfortable, okay? There's a lot to absorb in these episodes, and this week's episode is no different. This week, I am speaking with Coach Ben Bakayoko. Yes, that is the name, Ben Bakayoko. He is the founder of Ben Bakayoko Coaching. He is a certified extreme execution emotional intelligence coach as well. You guys have been watching me interview several individuals like that. So in season one, I interviewed Ryan Ramirez. He's an extreme execution coach. Demias Purdue. He's also a certified extreme execution coach. And this week we've got Ben. So this is somebody that is highly analytical and highly creative. So we go into his life story, and there are a bunch of gems just from his story alone. And don't worry, I got you. If you're a note taker, just watch the screen. You'll see the notes come up across the screen because we go fast. Like you got to keep up on this one. Similar to my interview with Demias, like there are a lot of gems in this one. So I've got you covered. Be sure to take all the notes that you need. And I know this one's going to bless you. All right. And as always, when I do these longer conversations, they're two-parters. So this interview is also a two-parter. My interview with Demise was a two-parter. Like when it gets deep, I want to split it up so you guys can have time to take the notes and digest and implement what you learned from the videos. So enjoy this week's part one, my part one of the interview with Ben Bakayoko. Check it out. As you see on your screen, I've got the one and only Coach Ben Bakayoko. Ben, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. It's awesome. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Absolutely. So as you guys see, he is rocking the gear, by the way. Ben Bakayoko coaching. Yes, absolutely. And I love that you use the Spartan helmet as the example, as your logo, because of all the different militaries that we've known through history, like we know like the Spartans were well known for their strategy. They were very strategic. And Ben is a very strategic person, y'all. Like he's he nerds out and he is a very effective with his coaching techniques. So, there are a few things that we're gonna go over, guys. Like you hear me tell you every episode, come with your pen and paper, be prepared to
Yeah.
take notes. Ben is gonna make you take some notes. But let's start from the beginning, Ben. Clearly you're a coach. Kind of talk about Ben Bakayoko Coaching, how you formed the company, and kind of your journey into coaching. Kind of let our audience know about that.
Yeah. So I think the best way to like explain that story. So is the kind of like origin story, right? So most people, when you look at successful people, you'll be like, you think to yourself, they were born that way or they were born geniuses. So people look at Albert Einstein, you're just like, yo, he was born a genius. In our circle, people would look like E.T. He says he was homeless and a high school dropout. We miss that and be like, he's successful. And we think he's always been that way. So it's easy for him. And the list go on. Oprah, we think like they've always been that way. And the truth is, like, yo, successful people have been where you've been. And so for me, like, yo, I was born in the Ivory Coast, came to the US when I was about 2 years old, went into the foster care system because what's it called? My dad physically disciplined my sister, and they snatched both of us up, right?
Mm,
And as a result, like now I'm in a foreign country. I don't really speak the language. I got to go to kindergarten with somebody that's not my parents, figure all that stuff out. So very quickly, I
mm,
started to develop a low self-esteem. I had nappy hair. Then after a year or two, I go back home, still got the nappy hair. Now I'm with my parents, yay! But I also go to school. I got an accent, and I remember the first day of school every year, they'd be like, yo, stand up and say your name. And I'd be like, yo, Ben Bakayoko. And they'd be like, yo, Ben Bakayoko, ho, ho, ben. And it just, Ben Bakayoko, yo, yo, all of these names. So now I'm ashamed of my last name. Then
mm,
I see girls, I'm not getting girls. I'm ashamed of how I look. Then eventually I'm ashamed of being African. So early on, like I'm trying to change everything about me that I can change. So I just like, yo, I'm gonna get a perm so my hair ain't nappy no more. Right? I'll
mm,
get nice shoes so I can look good. I'm gonna hang with the cool kids and do dumb stuff so that I could fit in. So I always
mm,
wanted to be the cool kid, and I always wanted to change me to kind of like fit in. So very quickly, you talk about the disc assessment, I turned into a high S, similar to a people pleaser, where I will do anything to be loved, accepted, or appreciated in a negative way. So there's positive ways to every personality style, but I developed a negative connotation. So I had a very low self-esteem, even playing sports and working out. Like I did it also people could love and appreciate me. And it wasn't until I got to college that I saw Nigerians. So now they're African too. And they only 1 year in the country. They get straight A's and the girls. So I'm like, what did I miss?
see,
Like, what do you think
see,
I'm really African? Like, I missed that, right? And so I started spending more time with them. I saw they studied, and I saw they were comfortable in their own skin. So it took me about 2 years to get on game about what it meant to be confident in your own skin. And then that only happened because every single week on Thursdays and on Tuesdays, motivational speakers would come to our school and they speak. And slowly but surely, they were speaking life into me. And then within those
mm,
years, now I got confidence out this roof, and I set a goal to be the number one motivational speaker in the world. E, right? So E had a very good influence on me. So I just like, yo, I want to do for other people what E.T., Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Jim Rohn of the world had done for me. And that's how I started my journey to kind of like be a coach. That was probably like 10 years ago.
wow, that's awesome. So, like, I knew you've been a coach for a while, but 10 years, that's a solid career. Um, so I mean, did you begin the coaching while you were in college, or did that start like, did you have a 9 to 5 first and then you built the business? Kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So I went to college to study what's it called? Accounting, right?
Oh,
Business.
wow.
I wanted to make money. Then I got hit.
Numbers.
Yeah, I found myself, right? And I was just like, man, I changed my major to African American study once I realized I didn't know that much about me. I was just like, bump the system. I'm gonna study African American study. Y'all got me chopped, right? I don't need no job. I'm gonna make my own business, right? And they started calling
Hmm.
me Golden Gandhi because
Wow.
and all that means is I used to box, so I got into a fight in college and kind of like knocked somebody out. So it's just like golden because golden gloves and stuff like that. Plus, I was an
Yeah.
alpha as a fraternity, so golden
Oh,
related to that as well. And Gandhi, off the sense that I was just rocking out my hair, just doing whatever needed to be done to be okay inside and not conform like I used to conform. So 2 years go by, I'm still studying and developing. I start saying no to a lot of the dumb stuff that we do in college, and then now it's time to graduate. I what's it called? I was in an intimate relationship. So 2 years went by. I had a desire to be a coach, so I've had to start telling no's to the parties. And then with that relationship, we were from different backgrounds and also different religions. And I kind of like projected into the future. I'm like, yo, we're cool now, but I can see how we're going to have challenges in the future. So the hardest decision I made at that time was to kind of like end that relationship. And after ending that
hmm.
relationship, I found the person that I wanted to marry, which is my wife. So a year after graduating, I get married. And now for the
Wow.
first year, my parents were supporting me. Right. And that was okay. I could do all of the personal development studying, create these speeches that I never give and stuff like that. But now
I love how you slid that in there. I love that.
I was on my high horse, like, yo, y'all should be listening to personal development stuff, changing your life inside of yourself. Because I didn't have to worry about making money. I could work for my parents. Then I got married, got a spot, and quickly I was just like, I got to figure out how to make money. And so the very first thing that I do to make money, because you only do what you're exposed to. I applied to one job after graduation, didn't get it, didn't apply to another one. I'm like, they don't like me, I'm not good enough. So I did what my parents did. My dad was a taxi driver. I decided to do Uber, but it was a nice Uber, right? It was what's it called? It was Uber
It's like
Black.
Uber Black.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Uber X. So I could drive around in a Chrysler 300. So I felt on top of the world with with the suits. So I was big time, but not really. And I remember one night crying in my car, Mellissa. I was just like, yo, this, I had to work this many hours to make $100. Dad, I respect you so much. I
Yes,
still can't make rent. I was just
that part.
like, thanks. And in order to make that work, like Mellissa, like I used to wake up at say I started work after rush hour. So say I started working at 3 p.m. Go
Okay.
downtown, drive people around in Uber. After that, from 3 p.m. all the way to like midnight, right? So I'll get the rush
Oh.
hour, then I'll also get people that want to work. Sleep in my car
Mm-hmm.
from midnight to about 3 a.m. Go into the suburbs so I could get the business people that need to go to the airport. And so from 3
That
a.m. all the
part.
way to like, oh yeah, I was like, that's where I really make money. So
Yeah,
from,
that's where the money is. Yeah.
yeah. And so from like 3 a.m. all the way up until around 10, I'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of like get the morning rush and then the actual rush hours so people could get the normal people get to work, right? And then from 10 to 3, I'll be at home, chill with my wife, sleep, and then do it all over again. But in between that, like on the rides, I caught myself saying, like, I'm networking with these people that's happening in the Uber. I ain't get no names, no numbers, no business.
See? See?
Right. And on top of that, what I made sure I did in between rides was still listen to personal development and motivational stuff. But
Mm.
year in, I was my wife got pregnant and my first kid was coming. I'm just like, there's no way that I think I only made $15,000 that first year of Uber. I'm like, this ain't
Wow.
gonna cut it for a family. I need a what, Kim? What did Mellissa? What did I think I need? A job. I need a job. So I graduated African American Studies. I'm like, yo, let me put my dream on hold for a little bit and go get a business degree. And I went to a HBCU, graduated summa cum laude at the top of my class. But I'm just like, dope, exactly. But I'm just like, I'm gonna go to a predominantly white school this time and get an MBA degree.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'm just like, all right, Ben, your little 4.0 probably like a 2.5 at this school, as it relates to an MBA. As it relates to an MBA, does that make sense? Or is it like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe I could be in a running. But as it relates to an MBA and you didn't study business, like, bro, you behind. So I studied something crazy for the GMAT. I did these incredible essays. I got my recommendations and I got in. And my thought process, Melissa, was, yo, when I graduate from this MBA program, I'm going to get a 6-figure job.
Oh.
I did a full-time MBA, 2 years. And my dad kind of convinced
Mm-hmm.
me to do it because otherwise I wasn't going to do it. And so I did
Mm-hmm.
that joker, graduated in 2 years, got a job in customer service paying 40 grand. That MBA cost 120 grand. I was in debt, living on food
Mm-hmm.
stamps, right?
Upside
So
down.
upside down. I'm like, what did I spend 2 years and all of that money for? Right. And then 2 years at my job. In the beginning, of course, the job was cool, but over time, I'm just like, yo, I'm never going to be able to pay my student loans. I can't even pay all my bills and pay for food without food stamps. And by now, I got another kid on the way. So I'm just like, yo, that's when I was just like, yo, Ben, you really got to get serious about starting a business. So I'll stop right there to see if you got any questions or comments about anything I shared.
That first of all, thank you for sharing that because it to your earlier point with with E and people seeing somebody that's successful and sometimes wipe away the fact that they did struggle to get there. Lisa Nichols has a great quote about that. Like she says, I'm not extraordinary because when you make don't make me extraordinary because when you make me extraordinary it lets you off the hook. Like it dehumanizes the person. And
Yeah.
then if you dehumanize the person, you can't see your own path to success through their path.
Yeah.
You lose your path when you do that.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing all of what you shared so far. Please continue.
Oh, just go. You just go. All right, cool. All right. So the whole time, and your whole thing is productivity, right? And so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember along that journey, I'm just like, yo, I gotta. Even though I'm doing the MBA program, even though I'm working full time, I remember the entire time I'm just like, yo, I gotta start a business. I gotta start a business. Guess what? I never had time for starting a business. Why didn't I have
Oh,
time? Because of my wife, because of my kids, because of my mom. And what I realized eventually,
external.
exactly, was external. And I remember I had paid for Game Changers, right? About a year into my MBA program, or a year before my MBA program, and I was called with CJ. He was talking about time management. He was just like, "Don't give me the excuse that you don't have time as why you ain't at your goal." That's what my excuse for why I'm not at my goal. Time. And no doubt. And he's just like, bro, you got only 20 hours. It's 24 hours, 168 in a week. Like, what do you mean you don't have time? And so before I even asked him question, I started thinking more. I'm just like, yo, Ben, why don't you have time? And at the time, it was because my dad had recently passed away. And
Okay.
like I'm foreign, which means my mom is foreign. I went to school here, she did, which means she
Hmm.
has a tough time speaking English, which also means she has a tough time reading legal documents, calling up her own doctor, and a lot of other things that immigrants need help with. And I'm her only child. And so her words to me exactly was when my dad died was like, yo, you're my new husband. That's it. And I'm just like, yo, that made sense immediately after my dad died. My dad died in November. I'm having this call with CJ in February. So when he's not, you don't have no time. I'm just like, yo, I do have time. I just got an MBA program, some work, and I'm supporting my mom. And you know what, Ben? It's okay. So stop saying that you don't have time. Your dream of starting a business isn't a priority right now, and that's okay. Just focus the next 6 months on helping your mom, and then you can start your business. How long did I focus on helping my mom, Mellissa? How long do you think? The next
Several
6 months?
years.
7 years.
Several years.
Oh, several years, at least two. So
Okay.
she had gotten past the whole like we did the what's it called? Because my dad was in business, so we had to file bankruptcy on his business, start a new business, put the business in my name. His house was in foreclosure because my dad was the type of guy, like even though he had a business, like we had money transfers. Like somebody will come to him and be like, "Yo, I don't got the money to do this transfer. Can you send it? And tomorrow I'll give you the money." He'll do it. I didn't have enough money for rent. He paid my rent before he paid
Wow.
his own rent. So his house is in foreclosure.
Yikes.
So now we got to redo that whole process. I put my mom's house in my name and all that other stuff. So we do a whole lot of stuff. But now, and I'm running her business, right? Her business is in my name. I'm filing her taxes. So there's a lot of stuff I need to do for her. And I remember like that stuff eventually starting to overwhelm me. So for 6 months, it was okay. But 2 years in, you drawing now, mom. Like now I have kids. Now I have a life. Now I actually want to start a business. But she's the type of person that doesn't want to hear no. So we start arguing,
Mm,
going back and forth, and eventually I just start ignoring her calls, or we just get loud at each other. And I remember thinking the thought, Melissa, it was crazy. And it was because her car insurance lapsed. This is what triggered the conversation. It lapsed 3 months ago. She didn't notice it lapsed until she went to go change her car insurance. She was like, "Yo, you made me drive around with no insurance for 3 months." I was just like, "Yeah, it was too much," right? And I wanted to ignore the conversation. But I remember along that process, Melissa, I'm ashamed to say this, but I thought like life would be easier if my mom was not here.
mm,
I thought that though, Melissa. And Inky said something around that same time. He's just like, "Yo, there's two things could happen." It's just like, yo, you're one of two people generally, right? If you got a people pleasing problem, or if you got overly aggressive issue, right? And he said like either one, because what we want love, but we also want to kind of like be stern and hold our ground. So he's like,
right.
yo, love without the truth is hypocrisy,
Yep.
and the truth without love is brutality. So I've
Yep.
never been the brutal type where it's just like, yo, I'm gonna tell you exactly how it feels, and it hurts your feelings. Like I find ways to articulate how I'm feeling to make you feel nice, right? So that hasn't been my issue. My issue was saying that I love somebody, not telling them the truth about how I feel. I had 3 years to tell my mom, like, yo, you're demanding too much of me. I can't do all
Mm,
of it. But I was being a hypocrite, pretending like everything is okay, but in actuality, like I didn't like you, mom. So I was just like, yo, Ben, you're gonna stop being a hypocrite. You're gonna put your foot down and you're gonna tell your mom what you can and you cannot do in a nice and loving way. And that's what I
right.
did. And that finally kind of like freed me. So my excuse that I didn't have time in the beginning was valid. 3 years later, it wasn't. And what I realized is it made me feel good to be needed. Like, even though I hated that she was asking me for help,
Oh,
it made me
that
feel valued,
that
right? because I could solve her
That's
problem. That's what problems I couldn't solve, my own, as it relates
your,
to.
mm-hmm.
So I would distract myself with her problems and be like, I don't have enough time to solve my problems. And once I eliminated her, now I realize, yo, Ben, you suck. You're just scared to network. You're just scared to market. You're scared to put yourself out there. And you're using your parents, your wife, and your kids as a good reason not to do what you're afraid of doing.
Mm, man, that's good. Okay. So I'm glad you paused there because I want to pull out some of the gems for our audience in case y'all struggling to keep up because there was a lot. But the most blaring one was the one towards the end, and I love that you pointed that out about that you discovered that about yourself. The reason you let it go on for 2 years was that, quite frankly, you liked feeling needed. Like there, for the folks that are watching, if this is you, if this is something you struggle with, don't be afraid to face that fact. It's a hard pill to swallow, but that may be the reason why you're procrastinating on the thing that you're supposed to be working on. You may be very busy attending to other people's duties. You might be the busy bee. Like that may be your procrastination style. And it may very well be from the fact that you kind of like being needed. You like serving other people's needs at the cost of your own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I love that you shared that. That was I guess I'm working backwards. That's number three, technically. Number two, which came shortly before that, is you drew boundaries. You had to draw a boundary with your mom eventually. Like you had to face that truth. Like, okay, I am exhausted. My needs are not being met, and I have a whole family to take care of now. It's not just myself. It's not just me and the wife. It's not just me, the wife, and one child. It's me, the wife, and two. Like there's a level, like there are levels there in terms of priority and urgency. So that was number two. Like you drew a healthy boundary, which then led to more time. You created
Yeah.
more time
Yeah. Yeah.
when you drew that boundary.
Yeah.
And then the number one for me, which has been a through line through your whole story, is always continue to study personal development. So, like, I'm familiar with every name you dropped. You know what I mean? Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, E.T. Like, obviously, you were in Game Changers. And for those who don't know, Game Changers is the speaking program that the ETA ecosystem had before Next Level Speakers Academy. Like, Game Changers joined with Jeremy Anderson and what Jeremy Anderson was doing, and they merged and became the Next Level Speakers Academy. So you guys are probably familiar with that name because they market the daylights out of Next Level these days. Like Game Changers was the familiar name for those who were already in ET's ecosystem.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to you, Ben, for that. And please, like if there I withdrew three gems out of that, but if there are more gems that you want the audience to highlight, please like share that.
Yeah, yeah. I think just on that story, because you talked about when I was on a podcast with Jess, and this is the story that I share with her. Um, one of the big things is, like once you realize that's so one of the other issues, like that made
Hmm.
me kind of like address this, aside from the fact that I was kind of like confused and overwhelmed, and the fact that I was using her as an excuse. Um, the other thing that I realized was like, yo, Ben, all right, so your problem is you don't have enough time. You don't want to kind of like tell your mom the truth. Aside from the fact that you're hiding from what you want to do, why else are you people pleasing with your mom or anybody else for that matter?
Hmm.
Because I thought if I start my own business, start telling my mom no, she's gonna say that I'm not a good son. She's gonna say that I don't love her.
Hmm.
So that's the other reason. So one, you're doing it because you actually like being needed. The other reason is just like, yo, Ben, you don't want to do what you want to do because you think if you do that, you're going to lose love. She's going to
Fear
judge
of
you.
rejection.
Fear of
Fear of
rejection,
rejection.
fear of criticism. And she's not just going to tell you, she's going to tell everybody else. Here's what I
Mm.
realized, Mellissa. She was
Hmm.
already thinking that I wasn't a good son.
Wow.
That was her hypothesis all along. Like, that wasn't helping.
Sheesh.
Like, yo,
Sheesh.
so if you're scared to do something that you really want to do, and your reason for not doing it is because you think that your partner, your mom, your dad, or your business people or other people are going to think negatively of you, they probably do it already. Not all of the time, but some of the time they actually do. Right. So, and literally think of that time, whether your partner, your wife, your mom, or anything, they've said your deepest fear to you.
That part.
Right. And
That part.
that made you want to do, not do what you wanted to do, but kind of make them change their opinion of you. And so I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what? I know I'm not a bad son. Right. And I know I'm
Mm.
doing this because I love you. So I finally matured to the point, Mellissa, where I had to ask myself the question, when is helping not helping?
Very important.
Yeah, because you're familiar with the DISC assessment, and I'm sure your audience is
Yep.
familiar with the DISC assessment. So I
Yep.
remember he used to talk about high Ds, where there's a mature D and then there's an immature D. And a mature D is the person that's really driving and demanding, kind of like we use CJ as the poster child for that, where it's just like, yo, he's driving, demanding, and direct, not for his own benefit, but for the greater good of ETA. So he's not doing it for
Right.
personal gain. Immaturity, like, yo, you want to be a boss, but you ain't really a boss. You're just acting like it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so I was just like, yo, what's the equivalent of that to a high S? It's somebody that's helping that's not really helping.
There you go. It's true. There you go. Helping but not helping anymore. Like,
Yeah. So I'm just like, yo, I'm a pseudo S, and which means it's just like, yo, I don't want to help for help's sake. I want to help to feel needed. So what that means,
mm,
I'm helping people that didn't even ask for help, Mellissa.
that's
They didn't even ask for my advice. I just want to give it to them while
mm-hmm,
sacrificing my own goal. And then when they reject my advice, I feel some type of way like they never listen and I'm always trying to help them. Or
mm-hmm.
um when because I've gone through great lengths to help them in my time of need, when they don't give me back the help that I feel like I've given them, I get in my feelings.
Talk about it.
I'm like, yo, they didn't
Mm-hmm.
even ask for the help. You volunteered.
Yup.
So you
Yup.
didn't help because it was the right thing to do. You helped because it was transactional, which means you thought like if you help, when you needed help, they would help you. I was just like, yo, Ben, you screwed up.
Mm, yeah.
I'll let you
Yeah.
say something
That's
before I go into my next tangent. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I'm so glad you used the word transactional because that jogged my memory to another thing that I would love for you to discuss. You mentioned the three different levels of maturity in terms of love. So there was, I want to say baby love, transactional love, and then unconditional. So kind of break those down for our audience.
I'm happy we paused. That is perfect.
Yeah.
I got this from Tony Robbins. He says there's three levels of love. The first level is baby love, right? The second level is transactional love, and then the third level, like Mellissa said, is unconditional love. So, what is baby love? And he always asks the question where it's just like, how many people have a baby? And people that have a baby raise their hand, or people who have adults that were once babies raise their hand. And people that don't have babies, it's like, yo, I can't wait to get a baby. They're so loving, they're so cute, they're so amazing. I know that one, right? But people that have babies, no, babies are selfish, right? Because they do not care about your feelings. How do we know that's true, Mellissa? We know that's true because the baby don't care that you have a job and that you didn't get no sleep. When it wants its milk, it's gonna wake you up. When it's crying and it needs to take a poop, it wants you to wake up and clean it, right? Whatever it needs, it wants you to stop doing whatever you're doing and take care of it immediately. If it doesn't, if you don't, it's gonna whine, moan, and complain, right? And so, and the reason why the baby does it is because it doesn't know any better. And when you get
Right.
into a relationship, sometimes we get married to babies. People that want what they want
Facts.
when they want it without any consideration of how the other party feels. And I can
Facts.
see like how I've been a baby in my relationship where I never really considered where my wife was coming from. I only considered what I wanted in that moment. If she couldn't give it to me right then and there, or even a little bit later, I'll get into my feelings and act like a baby, literally.
Yeah.
I'll whine, complain, stonewall, criticize, go the whole 9 yards, right? So that's a baby. Some of us actually mature and we
Hmm.
get to the level where there's transactional love. In transactional love, I always like to use the metaphor of what's it called? I was recently listening to Kevin Hart, and Kevin Hart goes for the jugular, and he did like
Facts.
a rope with Tom Brady. right? I don't know if you
Oh
watched
yeah, yeah.
Netflix, right?
I didn't watch the roast, but man.
Yeah, yeah. But essentially, the entire time he said some uncomfortable things. Like I'm generally raw and I try to be sincere, but the whole time it's like, yo, I don't care. Get uncomfortable. And look, you got to get uncomfortable before you can be comfortable. So he was just saying a lot of stuff that made people uncomfortable. So I'm gonna intentionally say something that might make your audience uncomfortable. And so we can really get transactional love into our system. I create transactional love with being a hoe, right? And all that means is with a hoe, you pay them for sex. You give them money, they give you sex.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give you, if you don't give them money, you get no sex. That's transactional. Where if I do this, they'll give me this. If I don't do this thing, they won't give it to me, right? So how does that apply to relationships? Where I was raised to believe, like, yo, when you get into a relationship, if I do my part, you'll give me what I need. And if you do your part, I'll give you what you need. The moment I
Mm-hmm.
start to notice for an extended period of time that you're not doing your part with the kids, with cooking, with cleaning, or with the job providing, or whatever it is you think your part is, I'm gonna stop doing my part.
Mm.
And I lived like that in my relationship for a very long time. And my wife would be like, yo, you transactional. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, isn't this how a relationship's supposed to be? Like, I'm supposed to do all of these nice and loving things for you. And in return, you're supposed to do all these nice and loving things for me. So
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, as a transactional person, I'm just like, yo, how is that even transactional? Like, I'm doing all of these things. You're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do.
Mm.
And I was just like, well, that's why your relationship sucks, Ben, because you're doing everything you think you're supposed to do in an expectation of getting something in return. And when you don't get that in return, you actually turn into a baby and you withdraw and you criticize.
That was a lot, right? As I mentioned, like there was a lot to keep up with. And this is just part one. Part two is even more amazing. So be sure to tune in next week for the continuation of this awesome interview with Coach Ben Bakayoko. Like Ben is awesome. So be sure to check him out on social media. I've got all of his information here on screen and in the show notes below. Be sure to follow him. He's on a weight loss journey right now that is super inspirational, and he's dropping gems even as he's going through the journey, sharing his life lessons and things like that. So follow him on Instagram, follow him on Facebook, follow him on TikTok. And if you have any questions for him, drop them in the comments. I'll be sure to get those to him. And when the part two premieres, drop your questions there as well. He'll be happy to answer them. And if you haven't yet, be sure to like, share, subscribe, follow this channel. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe here at Getting the Win. You can follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads at Getting the Win Show. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and have a great rest of your week. Remember to hashtag get on that. Make sure you are working on your hashtag luxury item, whatever that thing is that you've been procrastinating on. If this was your first episode, that is my goal for you. My mission with this show is that with each episode, you learn the tools that you need to work on the things within yourself to help you push forward and pick up that thing that you've been procrastinating on, whether it's a project, whether it's a difficult conversation you need to have with someone, whether it is that deep work. Maybe that deep work is the thing that you're procrastinating on. There's something within yourself that you need to face. There's some questions you need to ask yourself. Maybe that's the thing. This show is here to help push you to that greatness, to do the thing that is necessary for you to go from good to great. So continue to watch, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you can get all the notifications. That way you don't miss a single episode or a single community post. In the meantime, peace out. Beat procrastination with an attitude. Go to gettingthewingear.com. We've got shirts that deliver that message of your strong focus and dedication to your hashtag luxury item. Because your goal is super important. You are super important. And it's important that the world knows that you know that. Give them the message of focus, of self-work, of self-improvement, and empowerment. Go to gettingthewingear.com. Check out the shirts, sweats, mugs, bags if you need it. And give yourself that reminder, give the world that reminder that you are indeed a goal getter. You are indeed a winner.